in return, Conor Benn.
You clapped that one up.
I have a view of both him and Conor have a similar view in terms of they've been given a platform because of their surname, because of their dads. So from that point of view, their work ethic, I really admire it.
If you don't want to fight what you consider to be a drugs cheat, then don't fight him. He thinks that this sport can be really big.
Did you clear the air with him?
I didn't think I needed to. But I also think we've got to have pride in our own values, because I'm pretty damn sure, which I said to him, was if we rocked into Saudi, we wouldn't have Union Jacks and our national anthem being played at everything. So that was the kind of conversation. But he's a good guy, with all due respect. I would struggle to give you another round after that. I thought to myself, that's a nice little £1,000 I put down on Chris. That's going to be an easy win. Who would you pick?
Obviously, they're both going to carry power. I think Lawrence is going to land a lot more, though.
Welcome to episode 110 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver. Today we're joined by the former cruiser heavyweight champion of the world, Chris Billam-Smith. Very nice to see you, Chris. Did you notice I put the very low emphasis on former and much more emphasis on cruiserweight champion of the world?
Maybe it should be future.
Indeed. Nice to see you, mate. Thanks for joining us.
And you.
Boxing, the gift that keeps on giving. We've had a week of press conferences, specifically and explicitly the one that everyone's raving about or talking about or reacting to, which is the Chris Eubank Conor-benn press conference with the egg slap. I'm assuming you've seen this, Chris. What was your reaction to it all?
It's two lads who know how to promote the sport, don't they? Especially Eubank Jnr has always played that sort of villain role, and he's, he knew what he was. He knows how to promote a fight, and also wind people up, which you can see. He's obviously got a reaction, very good reaction, which he'll be happy with, I'm sure.
What did you think, Spence? I mean, a lot's been made of observations that people have made. I wasn't particularly offended by it. I thought it was funny. And quite frankly, if the allegation had been made about Chris Eubank that he was subject to some egg controversy and Conor-benn had done the same thing to him, I would think it's funny. I don't think it's great athletes laying hands on one another. But did you think a line was crossed, or did you just think it was a bit of marketing brouhaha?
It was a bit of marketing, and I think that, if you wasn't interested in the fight before, you're definitely interested in it now. And let's break this down, guys. Like, he was as Chris said there, Chris Eubank Jr. has always been the villain, turned victim because of what happened in that last fight, what he put his body through, what he had to go through. So in return, Conor-benn. Conor-benn.
You clapped that one up.
Absolutely. Sorry, Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn's going to kill me on that one.
Excellent.
Conor-benn's got an egg in the side of the head. Like, in comparison, you just look at it and you go, look, I think it's marketing genius. I think that, the longevity from that will be that they will get more pay-per-view sales, they will get more, more exposure. I don't think... Look, it's not a right thing to do, but you can understand it because it's not just happened out of nothing. There's a history behind that.
But it's an irony, though, isn't there, don't you think? Because the irony of it is that Conor-benn has never accepted the egg defence. It was never something that he put forward. It was never something that he verbalised. It was never something he agreed with. It was something that was given to him by the WBC.
Yeah.
So he's actually not guilty of the very things that Chris Eubank is alleging that he used eggs as defence. There's a slight irony to it, but we'll get into that a little bit more. But I wanted to ask you, Chris, I've got views of Chris Eubank Jr. as a boxer. I think he's a great showman. I think when he gets into press conferences, he creates a narrative all about himself and he plays a certain role and it gets everybody engaged. But there's the Chris Eubank Jr., the boxer, who every time I think steps up to world-class level loses. But do you have a view of him as a boxer? What do you think of him?
Yeah, I have a view of both him and Conor. I have a similar view in terms of they've been given a platform because of their surnames, because of their dads. And I respect them both because it'd be very hard to push yourself as much as they both have during their careers, with all the criticism that comes with being, your father's son when you've had dads that they've got.
Yeah.
And they've pushed themselves and put in the work ethic that you'd expect from that I've put in, for example, someone who hasn't had an upbringing like theirs, and in terms of the opportunities, it'd be very easy for them, is what I'm saying, to just take a few fights, earn a bit of cash just because their name, stuff like that. So from that point of view, their work ethic, I really admire it. I do think Chris, I believe he's good enough to win a world title. I believe he had the ability in the past. He's had a long time out. He hasn't lit the world up in his last performance, but he's got the job done. You know, against George Groves, he fell short. You know.
Is there any part of you that looks at it and goes, "Well, I was a bona fide, legitimate world title holder. You know, I won my belts. I don't get the recognition and the finances that these two guys that are fighting in a domestic fight, one going up 2 weight classes, one coming down a weight class with no world title, no straps on the belt." Does any of that rankle with you and think, well, hang on a second?
It's a business, isn't it, at the end of the day? And I understand the business, and I understand that if I, you know, cracked an egg across someone's face in that scenario, threw some tables at press conferences, did something like that, then I probably would be paid more than I am, because it causes hype, it causes more attention and builds your name. You're in the limelight more. I've never been that. I've been very sort of authentic throughout my career, and that's not me. So I've just stuck to that, sort of stay true to myself, but probably at the detriment of my purses, but that's my own doing.
That's your personality. You're being true to yourself, you're being authentic. Yeah.
Exactly, and I could not be myself and probably earn more money, but that's just not me. So I understand it from a business point of view that these people, they draw in money. I can't draw in the money they're drawing in, the viewers they're drawing in, and that is the way the professional boxing is. It's a business first, and it's a sport second.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you, Spence, what you thought of the reactions and actions of the two promoters. A lot was made by Chris Eubank Jr. about Eddie Hearn opening his mouth. And I have to say, I think the first question shouldn't necessarily be to Eddie Hearn, which maybe lit up Chris Eubank for saying, I'm not going to listen to him, because he's already had his swipe at all the promoters previously, which he's had to row back from with Frank Warren, isn't he, a little bit. But the conduct of both promoters, getting involved in the scenes, having strong opinions about them afterwards, what do you make of what Benn and Eddie have had to say? Benn's sort of gone down the line of it's a bit of a laugh. Eddie's been all offended whilst representing fighters like Derek Chisora that have thrown tables up whilst himself trying to get a fight on 2 years ago when one of the fighters had failed drugs tests. So he's all offended about certain things.
Listen, I think that, look, we attended the second press conference, and we must remember this is about Conor Benn, Chris Eubank Jr., the family feud, the fathers, the sons, and all that sort of stuff. Eddie Hearn had a lot to say at that press conference, and I think Chris Eubank Jr. had done the right thing by shooting him down and saying, listen, mate, it's not about you, it's about us. Leave that, let Conor speak if he wants to speak, but he was being Conor's voice box, if you like, a lot of the time. And Chris Eubank Jr., I think he owned it, if I'm totally honest. I think that he went out there, he done what he should have done. It was all premeditated, but he's a very smart kid. He knows how to sell a fight, and he didn't want to hear from Eddie. So it is what it is. I think that it was always going to be like that. And I think he got under Eddie's skin, and you've got to say that Chris Eubank Jr. owned that one.
What did you, I mean, you went to the second press conference, right?
Yeah.
What did you make of it? Well, obviously, the build-up of the first one was all that it was. And we saw the altercations, we saw people getting in one another's faces, we saw the egg, we saw Nigel Benn grabbing hold of him, we'll talk about that in a second. We saw Eddie Hearn pushing Ben Shalom, we saw the melee, right, and all that. And it's, to me, it's handbags. And I know that you can make a noise out of the fact that it shouldn't be done. But at the second press conference, you saw a slightly different dynamic, you saw a slightly different approach. What did you take away from that second press conference?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I saw there. Like literally what I was explaining there with Eddie Hearn trying to be the voice box really for Team Benn.
But from the two fighters.
From the two fighters, I think it was Chris Eubank Jr. all the way. I thought he dealt with it brilliantly. I think the way that he conducted himself, the way that he was speaking. He's a genius, not just at marketing, but he's a genius at getting inside the heads. Conor Benn, we know, is an emotional kid. Yeah. Chris Eubank Jr. presses the buttons. He's saying the right things, and I think that's what he did. That's what I took from it.
Which is what he did when he made the point to Nigel Benn, which was, I'll give you a pass. Yeah. You put your hands on me, I'll give you a pass. Everyone thinks this is all going to be nice, and Nigel says, I'm sorry about that. And he says, but if you do it again, you won't get your hand back. So he knows that's going to light Conor up. What do you make of Chris's stance about going after him as a drugs cheat and going after the rehydration clause? If you don't want to fight what you consider to be a drugs cheat, then don't fight him. So don't you think there's a bit of hypocrisy about this?
Listen, it's all part of the marketing. Again, Chris knows exactly what he's doing because, of the history of these two, going back 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, when this fight first fell through, he's always going to reignite that because he knows that's going to get in Conor's head. Whether he's been cleared or not cleared, that's always going to stick. And I think that Eubank is going to use that right up to the build-up.
But it is hypocrisy, though, isn't it?
Yeah, of course
because
it is.
the easy response to that is if you don't want to fight, if you think I'm a drug student, don't fight me.
Yeah, of course it is. But that is the selling point. That's what he's going to do.
Because it's all about money, isn't it? Because Chris is now saying in the rehydration clause, you know, I'm offended with the fact that you've only limited me to £10 when actually the IBF limit is 12.
Yeah.
And you've already limited me beneath that. I should be able to go up to what level I want. And then he says, in the next breath, but you're paying me for that privilege. I'll get on with it. That's
what I'm saying. He's using it. Look, Chris will vouch for me here as a fighter. He's using that. This is where the mental battles are won and lost in the build-up. This is going to be a long month for these two, going through these press conferences and whatnot. And Chris Eubank Jr. is trying to get into his head to go, he knows he's an emotional kid, and if you don't stick to the game plan, you go out there, you make a fundamental mistake, and boom, you pay the price for it. Chris Eubank Jr., correct me if I'm wrong, is getting Conor into this emotional state, so Conor comes straight out the blocks, tries to knock him out and makes a mistake and pays for it. I think that's what Chris is doing. He's got a game plan and he's sticking to it. He's trying to get into Conor's head, and that's where fights are won and lost.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what Chris does well anyway. He just tries to get under people's skin, whether it's Conor, whether it's somebody else. Obviously, I was in camp with George Groves in that fight, and they were really trying to get under George's skin, and George was too long in the tooth for it. But Conor's young in terms of his boxing career, the level, the sort of needle fights he's had. He hasn't had many of them. So Chris has been there and done it, you know, and he's very experienced in these sort of...
But this is it for Chris, though, isn't it? I mean, Conorbenn can lose this fight and still go on because he's got the ready-made built-in insulation that he's gone up 2 weight classes at a stage. If Chris comes down to 160 and fights a welterweight at 140, OK, he's walking around as a light heavyweight. And his dad says, you know, he's walking around as a light heavyweight at 170, 175.
Whatever he campaigns at 147.
But if Chris loses this, then there is no more, is there? This is it.
End of the road.
Besides the rematch.
That's the gamble that Chris Eubank Jr. is taking right now. If he loses this and he loses to a welterweight, he's got big problems. If Conor loses, he's got that, they're going, I'm dropping down in weight. It was too much of a task, too much of a, you know, but I mean, look, we're all talking about Chris Eubank Jr. and not really talking about Conor Henn. So, look, he's doing his job. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
he's
because we're at press
job.
conference stage, because ultimately we're at the spectacle of the press conferences. When you look at the fight, Chris, who do you think is going to win this fight?
I mean, excuse me, if you look through history, you have to favour the bigger man. Like, it's very... There's obviously been occasions where the smaller man won. I mean, I was at Mayweather-Canelo, where, you know, Mayweather was by far the smaller man. Obviously, it was at 152, not 154, which Canelo was at the time. And it was a boxing lesson, but a very, very young Canelo and a very, you know, we're talking about Floyd Mayweather, one of the, you know, the best.
You're going right to the top of the tree then, though, aren't you?
Yeah, and no disrespect to Conor, you know, he's no Floyd Mayweather, and I don't think he'll mind me saying that. So you have to favour Chris, although he hasn't, like I said, he didn't light up the world in his last performance. Neither has Conor in his last couple. Mm-hmm. So based on that, you have to favour.
Is that what you're going to do? You're going to favour Chris?
Yeah, I think I edge towards Chris, but Conor's style's a good style. If he can stay. Sometimes putting on the weight can be a good thing. It can give you more energy and, you know, make you the power, you know, increase your power, etc. But sometimes it can tire you out later on in a fight, being a little bit not used to carrying that extra weight. And Conor's style is very aggressive. He could overwhelm Chris early and, you know, and catch him and buzz him. But
which we saw Liam Smith do.
Exactly. But I just think Chris is probably learned from the Liam Smith fight. Will be, you know, very, very motivated, as they both will. But I do think it'll be an exciting fight. But yeah, I'd probably edge just towards Chris.
We'll look forward to it,
on the weight.
And we'll get to hear a lot about it between now and then, I'm sure. Anyway, let's move on. So, Mr. Boxing, Turki Alalshikh is announcing more big fights. This time the venue is Times Square. Let's have a listen to what he had to say about this.
We have Garcia, Haney, Tumalifo, a lot of fighters in that card. It will be something amazing. There is also small concerts, including the show. It will be a surprise. And we are discussing now with the zone and different platform to see what we can go with and to see what happened. This week a lot of conference in New York, and a lot of surprise this week. It will be something big. We will announce 5-6 big announcements in New York. I hope you enjoy it. It will be only, I think, between 100 to 300, not less than 100, not more than 300 seats in the card of Times Square. It will be invitation for special people, and it will be something amazing and one night never happened before. Thank you.
So, Times Square card, Ryan Garcia versus Rolando Romero, Devin Haney versus Jose Ramirez, and the inimitable Teofimo Lopez popping up for air against Arnold Barbosa. Disappointing for Jack Catterall. Another fight card, another significant one, another game-changing moment.
Great one, great one. He said there, 100 to 300 people will attend that. Are you one of those?
No, he asked if I wanted to go. Yeah.
I was going to get into that. I want to ask you about your meeting with Turkey, and we can save that for a bit. But I like it. I think it's giving boxing a facelift. You know, we're getting these new ventures now. Concepts and you know, I think it's a great thing. I think it's going to be a magnificent show.
It's a fascinating location. It's not going to be about the people who are attending. It's going to be about the broadcasting capability of it. But the fights in and of themselves are great fights as well, aren't they?
Yeah, listen, fantastic. I like Teofimo Lopez, Arnold Barbosa. Barbosa coming up, you know, he's in the form of his life at the moment.
Absolutely.
That's a great fight. All three of them are great fights, actually, and more to be announced. But, yeah, love it.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, we'd be disappointed that it's not our Jack Catterall in against Teofimo Lopez, because the accusation has been that Lopez has been very inactive and ducking everybody, and Barbosa put it out on the last press conference that they were going to get this fight. And I think location of Times Square, talking to Turki Alalshikh the other day, he's talking about doing one at London Bridge. I don't know how he's going to quite achieve that in London.
And Alcatraz as well.
Absolutely.
That's come up.
If you've come across this guy, what do you make of his impact?
I've never met Turki.
But you've been in the orbit.
So I think it's been great for boxing. At the end of the day, boxing was set in its ways, and there was different promoters not working with each other and things like that. Fights not getting made, and now all the fights are getting made, and you're getting a better bang for your buck with the entertainment. You know.
Do you feel the economic? Does it reverberate through you guys' minds? You know that there's a new sheriff in town. You know that the money side of things is very different. Do you feel that? Do you sense it in the industry? And is it something you guys speak about amongst yourselves as fighters?
I mean, we might speak about it in the gym. It's great that, you know, people want to get on these cards for numerous reasons. One, the cards. You look at the Bivol Better BF card. Yep. You know, one of the best cards ever, if not the best card ever. People want to be on shows like that. You want to be on these big shows. Then the money comes with that as well. Which is an increase on what we've been used to.
Sure.
So yeah, it's only been positive from a boxer's standpoint. I think, because I think it'll have to.
You were on one of his shows, though, weren't you?
Yeah. Obviously, the last fight was on his show, and it was out in Saudi.
Yeah.
Really well looked after a week. Really enjoyed the week because it was all more than just a normal press conference. You know, they did it in Boulevard World, in the Mexican part, which was really cool, obviously, with it being Latino night. And it's a great experience. Obviously, for me, apart from the result of the fight. But other than that, I really enjoyed it out there. And it was a good show.
Well, what he's done is take away the excuse, isn't he? People don't fight now. If they don't fight, it's not because they can't, it's because they won't.
Yeah,
because the money side of things been taken away.
Simon, interestingly, I wanted to speak to you. You met up with Turki last week, didn't you? So
I did.
What was your take from that? You know, how did the chat go? Did you take anything from it?
Well, I don't think he's any different in person than he is on television. He's very excitable.
But obviously, he talks to you about his future plans and what it is and
he's very excitable, very motivated, a great lover of the sport, very enthusiastic about things, very ambitious, sprays out 15,000 ideas a second. Wanted to talk to me about atmosphere observations and image laundering comments that have been made. So I just simply asked him, what is it you think I've said rather than what other people might have told you that I've said? But he has a real love of the sport and a real desire to change certain aspects of it. He thinks that this sport can be really big. He doesn't think the ceilings that people suggest that are on this sport, because I look at it and I look at in the American market, the NFL, the NBA, and the various established sports, the baseball leagues as well, are well-established sports. And in the UK, we've obviously got tennis, not so much tennis, we're talking about tennis, football and other sports that are slightly ranking above boxing.
But do you think it's fair to say that he's taking this out of the dinosaur age? Because boxing's one of those sports that doesn't change very much, but he's like giving this a massive facelift and, you know, getting, as Chris just pointed out there, the best boxing the best and taking all the politics away from the sport.
Well, yes.
That's only good for the fan and the boxers.
Yes, of course, because he's providing a financial landscape that doesn't require people to be compromised by which broadcasters in town. Because at the end of the day, the broadcasters are the key determiner. All you're seeing now is that Sky and DAZN and TNT have the opportunity to pick up big fights. And so the broadcasting hasn't changed. But the fighters that are fighting and the scale of the fights are more significant.
But the venues and where they're landing now and everything else is like, what I'm saying is that boxing does get tired and boxing's guilty of falling into that pattern where they do the shows at the York Hall and the shows at the O2 and they've got these familiar... now,
but I would say to you, without in any shape or form pushing back against the narrative that Turki Alalshikh is a good thing for sport, the only thing that was broken about boxing was the fact that the best fights weren't happening.
Yeah.
And so the locations of things, really, what we've got is a geographical shift from London and Las Vegas and America over to the Gulf state, which is fine because they have every entitlement to put the fights on. And we have some innovation. Well, we have some innovation because we've got Times Square, we've got other things that are going on. And I think that's great because what you're trying to do is straddle the sport into a different dimension, create a different audience. You know, and whether he finds himself doing stuff with other broadcasters like Netflix, who knows? Because the Jake Paul phenomenon, you'll see these sort of things. But I found him engaging, interesting. I think he wants people on side. Yeah. I think he wants to understand what resistance there may be towards them. There isn't any resistance. I also made the point to him and to the people around him that you're not beyond criticism. If criticism is fair, if it's biased and motivated by something that's not just and honest, but people are just taking exception, then that's not fair. But if someone says something like observes about atmosphere once upon a time, it doesn't mean that they're implicitly attacking the culture of your country. It just means that they think the atmosphere in other environments is slightly better.
But did you clear the air with him?
I didn't think I had to, I didn't think I needed to.
No, but I'm just saying, like,
I didn't.
What was your outtake from the meeting, though?
I think he's an interesting, motivated, enthusiastic man with an enormous amount of wealth personally, an enormous amount of power and influence, given the fact that he's got a nation state that wants sport and entertainment to be at the centre of their next offering to their own people. And so the beneficiaries of that are going to be the boxers, the participants in sport. I think he is so excited by what he's doing.
Were there talks of plans of you being involved any time, anywhere?
No, not really. There were various things. I'm not interested in working for anybody. I'm not running around chasing
Obviously, the conversations might have arose.
He has various ideas of things that people could do, but I'm quite happy with what I'm doing. But I also found him very interesting in the fact that he wants to do certain things. He wants to build leagues. He believes that there's a league opportunity that can build out competition, which will then enable it to be a mainstream sport. And I don't know whether the ceiling of boxing will enable it to go as high as he might want it to. But right now, that doesn't matter. He's creating energy and juice around this sport. He's putting a lot of money into it. And I think, with all due respect to some of the observations, and I stand by the observations I've made, I do stand by the fact that I do feel that I didn't need Wembley to be turned down to downtown Riyadh. I understand what it was, but I also think we've got to have pride in our own values, because I'm pretty damn sure, which I said to him, was if we rocked into Saudi, we wouldn't have Union Jacks and our national anthem being played at everything. So that was the kind of conversation, but he's a good guy. My overriding thought about the inevitable observation, oh, you're on a payroll, is I think he's a force for good. Right, let's talk about you, Chris. Unfortunately, for the purpose of this conversation, I'm going to take you back to the Zurdo Ramirez fight. A fight that I thought started brilliant in the first round for you. We've obviously seen Shane McGuigan's views on it. We've heard certain things from you in the past about that fight. It was a fight that I think that people thought was the right fight for you to take at the time, because it would get you another belt. I think we felt that at the time. You were in that fight. What happened, mate?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you said, started really well. Felt comfortable first round, but then, he's just a smart fighter. You know, he's had 49 fights now, 48 wins or whatever it is, or maybe one less. But yeah, and there was just things he did in there which I didn't expect. I didn't expect it to be as tough as he was.
Right.
I thought the punches I was landing would be enough to dent him a lot more than they did.
Did you underestimate him at all?
I guess in that sense, I underestimated his toughness. Yeah, I'd say in that sense, but underestimated his toughness because I've sparred, plenty of people, plenty of tough people, and I know what the damage I can do. And then he was able to hang in there and very smart, very clever little blocks and defence on the inside.
Like, he's that guy that just looks like he's punching slow, but there's a fluidity around his work. But the timing seems to be great. I wanted to ask you that because when you're looking at him, you're going, he looks really slow though, but it seems to be so effective. Did you fall into that trap as well?
Absolutely, yeah. His timing was really good, and his accuracy as well. Really good body puncher, and he he knows what he's doing in there, and he's had, he's been pro since 2009. I'd had, I think, 7 amateur fights by the point he turned pro. So he's a lot more experienced than me. And
do you think he beats Opataya?
At first I did, but then since I've watched my fight with him back more recently, I'm not sure because there's plenty I could have done in that fight that I'd change now. But I try and look at it from a positive point of view moving forward. What I've learned from that fight, it's given me that sort of, you kind of get set in your ways when you're winning all the time and you're like, okay, these are my strengths. My strengths are getting me the results. Just stick to them. And you iron out a few weaknesses here and there, but the weaknesses I had in that fight were, he really sort of highlighted them, all my weaknesses in that fight. So, now me and Shane have been really working on them. But you kind of get set in your way. So now it's almost like I've got that real vigour back in terms of training, in terms of I can really strip it back and work on little tiny things. I feel like an amateur again almost, trying to
For him
work
to
on
exploit
things.
those weaknesses though in the contest just shows you how good he actually is, his boxing IQ, that he can work that out and adjust and exploit those through a contest. So yeah, underlines what people are saying about him as being possibly one of the best, or if not the best in the division. Yeah,
I do think Jai beats him. I think he's just a bit fresher, a bit quicker, good feet, which I think you need with him. My feet were a bit slow at times. I had success dropping back on the night. Jai's very good at dropping back and punching. But yeah, I think he's very talented. I was plenty of shots I'd throw in there, and I throw a lot of twos, like 2 shots at a time.
Were you surprised what was happening to you in that fight? Because I remember watching the first round thinking, oh, this is an easy night's work. Because in the first round, you were so dominant and you made him look so lethargic and unsure of himself. And then with all due respect, I would struggle to give you another round after that because it seemed to be like it changed between rounds. Were you surprised by him in terms of the first round you go out there, you start quick and you are, in my view, dominating the first round. And as I said, I thought to myself, that's a nice little £1,000 I put down on Chris. That's going to be an easy win. Because you look so good. Yeah, absolutely. But there was a sea change, almost instantaneous. It's almost, he's got the measure of you, gone, well, actually, I've got to do something different. And change gear.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you're talking about, the capability of being able to do that and adapt.
Yeah,
and
but
adjust.
I'm talking about him.
Yeah.
That's why I finished the fight quite well, because it took me too long to realise it, but I couldn't land the 2 shots that I was
But what was
throwing.
Shane saying to you? Because this was a fight that was so set up for you, because they was looking around. My understanding was this was the fight that was picked for you to have to win another belt before you get to Opataya. Not because it was easy, but because this was the right fight for you. And Shane was very, very confident. Now, when it's going wrong, and it's visibly going wrong, and I mean, it's easy for us on the sidelines sitting in, especially someone like me that's never been in a ring like you guys have, but it's visibly going wrong. What is Shane saying to you at that time to change the course of events that are unfolding right in front of your eyes and in front of your face, literally?
He's saying the right things in terms of to get to the right position to land punches and stuff like that. But like I said, I was throwing the 2 shots and they weren't enough. He was able to block, I'd throw a left hook, right uppercut. He'd block the left hook because he's a southpaw of his right shoulder, then block the right uppercut of his right hand. So I was having to then realise, it took me too many rounds to realise the 3rd and the 4th and the 5th shot are the ones that are going to do the damage, rather than going boom and landing those first 2 and relying on them to stop him in his tracks so then I can go. I had to go boom, 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 and then I'd start putting my shots together better, which is why I finished better. 10, 11, 12 were, he won some of the rounds, but I still had more success in those rounds. And Shane was giving me, other tips about the jab and things like that. But he was just a smart fighter.
What was the psychological impact of a loss like to you? Because I saw you fight Lawrence in the Vitality and all the emotion that went with that. Then I saw you fight Masterneck at the Civic Centre in Bournemouth, right? And you came flying out the ring because it meant so much to you, that particular fight, defending your belt. When you go and lose a belt, and obviously you went and beat Richard at Selhurst Park, and all of those fights, I had not mean-spiritedly picked the opposition. In this fight, I picked you. So I am the common denominator of the fucking block,
Start
right?
picking everyone else.
Picking everyone else. But was there a psychological effect upon you in terms of some people take a loss really badly and find it difficult to contend with? You, as a pretty balanced individual, you seem to be one of those characters that can take success and failure with a bit of balance.
Yeah,
what was the effect like on you?
I think at first really, really hard. It was I think because of how I was feeling as well. Like I was in the hospital for like 6 hours after waiting to have stitches and CT scans and all sorts of stuff. And it just took a long time. So I had no food, no water because they put me on a little morphine drip to help with the pain for like 5 minutes. So I couldn't, you're not allowed to eat or anything on one of them. So then I've just done a really hardest 12 rounds of my career physically. I look a mess. My ego's bruised, my body's bruised, and then I've got no sleep for all that time in the hospital and stuff like that. So the few days after, emotionally, it was really tough to take. And then the hardest thing was going home. All I wanted to do is get home and see my son. And I get through the door and he wouldn't hug me. He was like, "I don't like your ouchies," because I had all the stitches. So that was the hardest thing by far. That was the most heartbreaking thing. He probably wouldn't hug me for about a week. So that was pretty difficult.
Why was there no rematch clause in it? Because you was going with something as well. It's not like you was going as the challenger. You're holding a title as well. Why was there no rematch clause?
I think in a lot of unifications at that level, it's not like we're a Usyk Fury where we're putting our belts on the line for a...
Was it a conversation though, or is it not a conversation?
No, because we wouldn't have wanted... If I asked for a rematch clause, he's going to ask for one.
Yeah, sure.
And we didn't want that. We were confident enough to go in there, win the belt off him, and then move on to Opataya or whoever the WBC champion. We just wanted to collect the belts, and I think he probably thought the same. And I think that was never really a conversation. I think in that situation where it's a 50-50 fight and you both think you're going to win, I
like it. I think that I love that you're not having that insurance insurance policy. I think it's good.
I've never asked for rematch clauses on my side. The only one I signed up to was the Lawrence one.
But more importantly, now you move forward. You're now out again on April 26th. You're in a division where people are departing and going up, potentially. And Richard Riakporhe's gone up, Lawrence Okole's gone back, which are two natural rivalries for you. You've been a cruiserweight champion of the world. So are you at a crossroads? What's
the ambition?
Is it the Badou Jack route to get yourself a belt back and then ultimately then maybe step up? Or is it simply, I'm a cruiserweight, I want to get back into the position I once had, which was one of the belt holders, and I'll see what opportunities come my way as a result of that?
Yeah, I think so. I think cruiserweight's natural weight for me. At the end of the day, I'm not the biggest cruiserweight, and I know Usyk, he was a big cruiserweight and he's not the biggest heavyweight. Lawrence and Richard, for example, would look probably bigger than Usyk in the ring, but I wouldn't fill out like they do. I don't struggle at cruiserweight to make the weight. It's obviously always, you still have to make the weight, but it's not a struggle. And also my fighting style. My fighting style's not going to suit getting hit by blokes who are 18 stone. Right. My health is paramount. Brain health, we've been unfortunately reminded recently about the dangers of boxing with John Cooney and stuff. So I think it's, and I've got a family,
Chris, I've got, off the back of that, having a family, I've got, if you've been British, Commonwealth, European, world champion, you've boxed at the Vitality Stadium, which was a dream of yours, down in Bournemouth as well. where do you find the motivation now to continue after coming off the back of a defeat? Because at this stage of your career,
you've achieved
that must be a big thing. You've achieved everything.
Yeah.
So how do you ignite that motivation now?
I think it's built in now. Like in terms of like, it's a habit. Boxing is a habit. Keeping myself looking for an edge to improve, whether that's a fitness, boxing, as a husband, as a father. I'm always looking to improve. I do my wife's head in. I truly do. The amount of stuff I send her, like, we need to do this for our son. We need to try and do this in our relationship. I wind her up. I'm one of those people. Just like, I have a growth mindset. I just always want to improve. So with boxing, I think it's the same. I just want to improve, and I feel like there's untapped potential still.
So I mentioned it there, you know, Badou Jack, WBC champion, been inactive for a long time. He's at that sort of age where you go, if you're looking at the champions, you've got Jai Oppetai, but you're looking at Badou and you're going, that's the guy. That's my route back in. And then you've got that chance again to box for the undisputed again. But would that be someone you're targeting?
Yeah, look,
Has that been a conversation?
Yeah, of course. We went to WBC convention, which was a bit of a strange one because the champion was Mikhailian. He got stripped. Badou Jack got reinstated. He was ordered to fight Riziki. He was the #1 challenger. Peralta, who was #2.
You were #4, right?
Sislak was #3. They got ordered to fight each other. And me and Brandon Glanton are 4 and 5.
Yeah.
So we're fighting each other. And there's that route there. But there's also talk of potentially getting a WBA ranking off the back of this fight, because I think Glanton's...
Is it important, is this performance for you, is it important in the manner of the performance, or is it just get the job done?
In this fight?
Yeah, in this fight. Coming back off the loss, do you want to... I mean, obviously you want a compelling victory, I know that.
Of course.
But is it paramount to you, or is it just getting the job done?
And also, the guy is a serious contender. He's a great fighter with not a big profile, so it's a high-risk fight for you.
Yeah, of course.
Because Glanton, you look at him, he's a dangerous guy.
Nobody really knows him, but he's got the same record: 20 wins, 2 losses, 2 losses which are, He
had close losses.
They're very close
very
losses.
Close, split decisions.
So it's a dangerous fight, of course, but that's what gets me motivated. I know the dangers he poses. It's not like I'm underestimating him because he's not a big name, and it's a fight that I need to win. And I guess if I win and have a flat performance, Simon, to answer your question, then maybe that'll entice a champion. Who knows? Obviously, that's not my aim.
No, of course not.
But the win, I guess, is the most important.
Of course it is. Yeah.
Then obviously I want to perform well because, for my own sake, and for me, it's performance is what gets you the victory.
Sure.
At my dad, I'm sitting down. I tapped him on the shoulder. He said, "What?" I said, "I'm sitting down." And he's like, "So what?" I said, "What's the rule in the gym? What happens in the thunderstorm?" I said, "It rains." He said, "It doesn't stop raining." I said, "Yeah." He said, "I want you to run across the ring and I want you to throw punches and don't stop." Any tournament he was at and I was at, it was like, oh, here we go. I go out there, I know nothing about Alexander Usyk, and he's got this funky hair. He's Ukrainian. I've never seen a Ukrainian before.
It's Malinazzi next. Does he get to you at all?
Early on, I was like, this kid ain't got a shot with me. As a boxer, I can truly say I did it all. Eddie's got this little smirk on him, and Eddie, I still don't like that smirk. I'm walking to the ring for Keith, and one thing that was told to me about walking to the ring, that I was being booed and leaping with the hook, and he comes here and right hand right down the middle, and I go down. I go down and I'm shook. Why are you guys taking me there, huh?
So Spence, latest episode of My Life in Boxing out this Sunday.
Yeah.
Worth watching, is it?
Yeah, of course it is. The last one, or the first one that come out, was all about myself, my
Which will be
journey
interesting.
in boxing. Very interesting, and we got Shawn Porter as the second episode. We've recorded 9 of them actually, but Shawn Porter, fascinating journey he had in boxing. Do you know what I love?
Ask him how he got on against Kell Brook, how he got battered by Kell Brook.
Listen, he was very honest about it, to be fair. But what I love about
Great
my life in
performance from Kell, that
boxing,
was.
it really was. What I love about my life in boxing is the story, the backstory that you hear from all these boxers.
Of course.
that we've done that. It's fantastic. It's an interesting watch.
Well, I did some of that on my stuff up front with Carl.
Yeah, you didn't have me on that one.
No, because I wanted to talk to meaningful people. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Chris, and there's a series of things I want to ask you, but this one, given you fought both of them, a Cody versus Reactor. You've already said you don't want to step up to the heavyweight division because you feel naturally you're best placed in the cruiserweights. How do you see that fight going, having fought both of them?
I look at it, I've been asked this a lot, obviously, since it's been made, and I look at it, you look at their careers. Lawrence hasn't lost a lot of rounds in boxing, like through his career. Obviously, I beat him, but I've got 200 to 300 rounds of sparring experience and a coach who knew him really well. Yep. So we knew him and we knew his weaknesses. So if you haven't shared the ring with him much, it's hard to figure him out. Lawrence knows how to, if he doesn't knock you out, he knows how to still win rounds. Might not be pretty, but he knows how to do it. Richard's lost a lot of rounds. He's been down in fights and his power's carried him through. Dion Juma. I thought the Jack Massey fight was really close. Me and him was, really close. Sam Hyde, he was losing earlier on in his career. Yeah, the first one. So yeah, and then off the, he'd had a too long a break, I think, as well. I think, obviously, I think he's moving trainers now.
I think heavyweight is key here as well, though. Lawrence Coley is much bigger guy, right?
Yes, but I think Richard will put it on the right way, whereas Lawrence, as we've seen, has looked fleshy, probably a bit too heavy in his last fight, which I don't think he'll be near that in this fight. He'll probably lose another stone and a half.
So who would you pick?
I would pick Lawrence. But I think the only factor is if Lawrence is very energetic in the way he boxes, and sometimes if he doesn't knock someone out early, it becomes messy, it becomes tiring for him and his opponent because he's tying him up. But if Richard stays calm and can carry his power late on into the fight when Lawrence is tired, he might be able to find the shot. I don't think so. I think I'd pick... Obviously, they're both going to carry power. I think Lawrence is going to land a lot more, though. Lawrence is very hard to hit clean. And I think
You managed it?
Yeah, but like
you
I
had
said,
insight, you had inside knowledge.
I had that insight, and we knew the shots that we could land on him and his mistakes and
so
stuff.
You're going Okoli?
So I'd pick Lawrence.
Yeah. What did you make of the Gervonta Davis notes over the weekend?
Do you know what? I feel that his opponent was very hard done by, if I'm totally honest, because Gervonta taking a knee, the way that he took that knee, should have warranted a count. The referee started a count and then decided not to count, let him go back to his corner. I understand from his point of view, when he said that, Gervonta, that grease, when you've got like gel in your hair or whatever and you're just sparring, you've got a head guard in, it stings like mad, right? So I understand that having products in your hair does sting. Schoolboy error from him. He's going in 2 days before to get his,
I'm sorry, but
get his hair done.
Don't have them in your hair.
Like, it's schoolboy error. Yeah. But I feel that he should have been penalised for it, and he wasn't penalised for it, and that was the difference between winning, losing, or draw.
Well, I mean, the WBA have got to get involved. This has got to be looked at, and whether the worst case scenario is a rematch, which is the most likely of the. I don't think they're going to award and take the decision away from Gervonta Davis. I don't think they're going to rewrite the record book. I think if there's a best case scenario, we've seen the WBA, we've seen Frank Warren debate with the WBA about Daniel Dubois and Alexander Usyk with the low blow. We know that they're not the most responsive. In this one, this is clearly a refereeing.
It'll be an immediate rematch. They're not going to overturn any decision. And I saw the New York State Athletic Commission actually said that there was problems with their equipment, and that's why they couldn't rerun to see what had happened with
this. It's not problems with the referee's eyes, are they?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's exactly right. But so I think that they're just going to go, you know what? Let's just rerun it. And I think that they have to do that because I think that it was wrong. The decision as it stood was probably wrong. I think Gervonta was lucky to get away with a draw, and we need to see it again.
What do you make of the circumstances that Joseph Parker finds himself in? His reward for being very significantly, putting in very significant performance recently was the fight against Daniel Dubois. Prepares for the fight, we all know what happens. He now finds himself on the outside looking in, as it appears that Daniel may well be off for an undisputed against Alexander Usyk. I mean, where do you think that should land?
Was Parker mandatory for...
No, voluntary.
And
that's the only thing.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. I think Daniel, I don't think there's any malice in terms of him pulling out because he's hurt.
No.
I think he was ill. I think it happened, and he, probably thought, I'll beat Parker, then I'll fight Usyk.
Yeah.
The Parker fight hasn't happened. In Daniel's position, naturally you're gonna chase the biggest fight out there, in Usyk. From Joe's perspective, you're going to be annoyed, but unfortunately that is boxing. As a voluntary defence, if the champion pulls out, most likely you're not going to get it. You're not going to get that.
You're not tied in as voluntary. You get that opportunity. If the opportunity doesn't materialise, it's the nature of the beast. It's unfortunate for Joseph Parker. We love Joseph as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he deserves that shot. And I think that's why people are getting frustrated because he had the shot. It fell out at the 11th hour, and now people are going, well, surely that should be immediately ordered as the fight that should happen next. Well, no, because he's the voluntary. That's where the problem lies. And from Daniel's side of things, he's going, well, Usyk's now looking for that dance partner. They want the undisputed. It's a natural fight.
And he feels he's robbed in the first fight, Daniel. Yeah. So he's going to want that. And it's such an unfortunate set of circumstances. I think that.
Where do you think Joseph will go?
Well, there's big fights out there. Catterall's the one that comes to mind. You know, the guy that's sort of like really now. He deserves that opportunity now. Like he's earned that right. And you go, Joseph Parker is the next big name that he should be getting there. Catterall versus Joseph Parker. The only unfortunate thing for both of those guys is no titles on the line.
No reward,
But I mean, look, that's the sort of
financially they could be with Turkey
absolutely.
involved because I'm sure he'd love both those guys.
On Friday evening we got Tasha Jonas versus Lauren Price. That's another good fight, right?
I like that fight so much. Like. Natasha Jonas has been a great pioneer for women's boxing, for women's sport. 40 years of age now, two-weight world champion. And you look at her and she was the nearly girl when she had that draw, way back when with Terry Harper. And you just think, the girl's like, she just sort of like, is she going to be the nearly girl, the one that doesn't get over the line? The Katie Taylor fight, what an incredible performance.
But she did.
Losing that one. And if she got the opportunity, she's done that. But she's going in against, this young lioness who's like a decent fighter herself. Could all be about timing this one.
Good fight. I think Natasha. Quickly before we go, I just want to touch very quickly upon Ben Whittaker. Back in with Liam Cameron. Right thing to do. Andy Lee in his corner. Make a difference, won't it?
Huge difference. For me, Andy Lee's, he's a great student of the sport. He understands it, works it out. And that, I think, maybe what Ben Whittaker needs to reignite his career, because he's the one that's got to answer all the questions now, because only he knows when he went out the ring whether that was legitimate, whether it was a way out, and we're going to find that out, in this return. But I'm glad that we got the fight on. It shows that Ben is confident.
Yeah, and I'm really happy for Ben to get a coach. Andy's had success with Joseph Parker. Paddy Donovan, obviously performance-wise, performing really well. So, hopefully we see the best of Ben.
And Paddy Donovan, Lewis Crocker.
Carl, well, listen, where do you go with that? Yeah. Where do you go with that? You feel so sorry for Paddy Donovan because he was controlling and winning the fight, and the fight was virtually over anyway. Yeah. And he
put himself in the way of it, though, didn't he?
Listen, I think the decision stands as the right decision because the shots landed after the bell. But let me say, from a fighter's point of view, Chris, you'll probably understand or agree with me on this one. He had the momentum. As he threw the first shot, the bells rang and he's going there and he's let it go. You're talking about a split, so I understand how it happened, but the rules are the rules.
The rules are the rules.
And that's where we're at with it.
Yep. Right. That's it, boys. That's it for episode 110 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan and Spencer Waddell. Thanks, Chris Billam-Smith, for joining us. And good luck with your fight.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time we're out.